We did no wrong. But did this interview answer anything? When I first heard Tracyston Shepard's interview, I expected it to answer some of the biggest questions surrounding Nolan Wells' death. Instead, I walked away with even more questions.
We did no wrong here, and we don't understand how we're getting so much hate behind it. We all cared and loved Nolan, and nobody wanted to see Nolan die. Nobody wanted to see his life be taken so short.
Think about it for a moment. An 18-year-old football player goes on what was supposed to be a fun 4th of July trip with friends. A short time later, he's missing. 2 days later, he's found dead. His family is still searching for answers. The investigation is still ongoing. Yet, one of the last people known to be with Nolan is now saying, "We did no wrong here." That statement immediately caught my attention. Not because it proves anything, but because many people are still asking one simple question. What exactly happened during Nolan's final hours? In his interview, Tracyston asked everyone to stop attacking people online and instead mourn Nolan. On the surface, that's a message most people can agree with. Nolan deserves to be remembered. His family deserves respect. But at the same time, asking respectful questions isn't the same as spreading rumors. In fact, Nolan's own parents have made it clear that they still have serious questions.
Now, so I was telling him, look, if you go with 5, you come back with 5. Do not separate from your group. Because I always said safety is in numbers. And he always said, yes, sir. So he knew to stay with his group. So why would he split from his group? I don't know.
So that would have been unusual.
If the family is still looking for answers, isn't it natural for the public to have questions too? One thing that stood out to me was when Tracyston described Nolan as his best friend and someone he loved like a brother. However, Nolan's mother later publicly said she didn't know him as Nolan's best friend or childhood friend. That doesn't automatically mean either person is lying. Friendships can be complicated, but it does show that not everyone remembers their relationship the same way. And that only adds another layer to this already heartbreaking story. Another moment that caught my attention was Tracyston's explanation of the viral cell phone video. He says the voice people have been discussing is actually his, not Nolan's. Authorities have said they are reviewing that video, but they have not publicly confirmed whose voice it is. So once again, we're left waiting for investigators to sort out the facts. Then there's the cell phone itself. Nolan's family has repeatedly said they want the phone examined by forensic experts, because they believe it could help answer important questions about Nolan's final hours. If the phone contains information that can help establish the timeline, then many people will naturally be waiting to see what investigators find. This is exactly why the case continues to attract so much attention. It's not because people enjoy tragedy. It's because so many important questions are still waiting for answers. Did the interview answer those questions? Or did it simply create new ones? That's what we're going to discuss today. Now let's talk about the cell phone. According to Nolan's mother, when she checked his Snapchat accounts, she expected to find pictures and videos from the Horn Island trip. Instead, she found nothing. She said Nolan loved recording moments whenever he was out having fun. And that made me stop and think.
So that day, no, I don't. But of course, too, they were on the boat. And usually when he is out there, which it's not uncommon, he's, I think, since last year, he's been going there occasionally with his friends. And so it would always just be like, hey, Mom, I'm back, type of thing. But this time there was no call or text from him. It was from his friend.
And then, too, really didn't worry a lot about it because, it was his last weekend to have fun because that Monday he had to report to school. We was preparing to take him back for camp to prepare for the season. So, we're gonna see. He wanted to have his.
And you say you have Nolan's cell phone and messages were deleted. How could you tell messages were deleted?
Well, his parents got the phone back, and that's something that's important, Michael, because they tracked this phone on Life 360.
So Life 360, but when I received the phone call from Warren, I immediately called my friend Toshima, and I said, hey, have you guys seen Nolan? Because her two sons, Jalen and Javon, like they grew up together. They played City League sports together. When they got into school, they played sports together. And so she was like, hey, like, okay, the boys were pulling up the location from Snapchat. So the Snapchat location looks completely different than the Life 360 location. So when I pulled up Life 360, it was different. It was showing everywhere the phone had been. Like it had, I was like, well, it's showing that he's back on land. Like I'm not, he's like, but no, he didn't come back with us.
Well, how were you able to get the phone?
So we tracked it, and my friend Tashima went and picked it up.
If that was truly Nolan's personality, someone who enjoyed capturing memories, then wouldn't this trip have been even more special? This wasn't just another weekend outing. It was supposed to be one of his last celebrations before returning to football training. If he normally shared photos and videos during ordinary outings, how much more on a trip that marked the end of his summer and the beginning of a new chapter in his life? Of course, there could be explanations that investigators haven't shared publicly. But it's easy to understand why Nolan's mother found the absence of photos and videos so unusual. This is strange, and the people who are with him during the final hour have a lot to answer. I am not accusing anyone here, but let them start speaking. Maybe one of them will open up and tell exactly what happened to Nolan. When I think about everything we've discussed today, I keep coming back to one thought. This wasn't just another holiday. This wasn't just another trip with friends. According to his family, Nolan was preparing to return to football. He had been training all summer, and this weekend was supposed to be one last opportunity to relax before getting back to work. Instead, it became the last weekend of his life. That's what makes this story so heartbreaking. As I listened to the interviews and read what Nolan's parents have said, I couldn't help but notice how many important questions are still waiting for answers. Questions about the timeline. Questions about the phone. Questions about what happened during those final hours on Horn Island. Those are exactly the questions investigators are still working to answer. I believe Nolan's family deserves those answers. Every parent deserves to know exactly what happened to their child. And that's why so many people continue to follow this case. Not because they're looking for drama, but because they're hoping the investigation will eventually provide clarity. Until then, I think it's fair to keep asking respectful questions and to let the evidence guide the investigation. Now I want to hear from you. After everything you've heard, what question do you think investigators need to answer most? Was it the phone? The timeline? Or another detail that stood out to you? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, but please keep the discussion respectful. This is an active investigation, and every conclusion should be based on evidence rather than assumptions. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more thoughtful updates on stories like this, don't forget to like, subscribe to Star Life with Precious, and turn on notifications. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next update.